Congressman Tim Bruchett was just on Tucker Carlson's podcast, and they were talking mainly about UFOs and disclosure, which Tim kind of got more popular recently, talking about how there are alien bases at the bottom of the ocean, and this is something that he's been told. Let's take a listen to this clip here before we get into any of that podcast.
You received intelligence that suggests that there are perhaps deep water alien bases right now sitting on the ocean floor on this planet. Is that accurate?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Can you go into more detail? How long have they been here? Where are they?
Well, I'm extrapolating all this with my East Tennessee vernacular. So we've got five or six deep water areas of our oceans. We actually know more about the surface of the moon than we do about these areas. And these are areas where we have a high frequency of UFO or UAP sightings. We've had naval folks have told me pretty high up that they've actually tracked these things. Now, we have stuff that can go underwater probably 30 to 40 miles an hour, maybe something a little faster that the Chinese haven't stole from us yet. And we've tracked things big as a football field going 200 miles an hour. Now, I realize in the water you extrapolate that to knots and all that, but just for good old East Tennessee common sense, 200 miles an hour, something the size of a football field. And we don't know what it is. And these are in these areas. So, yeah, there's something going on there. And whether it's something that's been here for millennial or whatever, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm kind of like Dr. Loeb. I love to study this kind of stuff. It's the scientific material there he's the one that just disclosed some things that were found that were extraterrestrial in our oceans. And, he's brave enough, I believe, to come forward with those. So I'm looking forward to some more talks about this. But I think I've kicked the hornet's nest because it was just in a casual conversation with a blogger. And I discussed it. It wasn't in a classified setting, so I could talk about it. But I always remember the last thing this one high-ranking official told me as he left my office. He was right close to me as I am to my phone in my barn right now. And he said, Tim, they're real.
You received intelligence.
So there's a lot in that. And kind of why Tim Bruchett is in the public eye talking about UFOs right now is because he was recently asked, talking with a blogger walking the streets of DC, about UFOs and about aliens. And he said, I think that they've probably been here for a long time. There's probably 5 or 6 alien bases at the bottom of the ocean, according to what we know. Now, this is interesting just to throw into the whole picture here, and then we'll get into his interview and what he's talking about on Tucker Carlson about UAPs. And we'll also look in this video into some of the spiritual deceptions, associations, what the Bible has to say about this, because it explains that this type of thing, these unknown things are going to be taking place in the earth as we move into the end times prophetic timeline. And that's exactly where we are, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So we'll look into that, but this is interesting here. I'll just let this video play because what it is off Point Magoo here in Southern California in Malibu. There was this structure that was seen on Google Earth on the ocean floor for years, where you can just see there's like columns in the front. It's a round thing there, and as he just said there, you can't see it anymore. Now this is what you see when you go on Google Earth, on Google Maps, and you look over this section of the ocean, again, right off of Point Magoo in Southern California. And they've completely blacked out this area now. They've blotched it out. And I saw more recent updates on these pictures, and they're a little better than this patchy work here. But interesting. Why would they go and just go do that? Even if it's just some anomaly and it looks weird, why wouldn't they just upgrade the photos and show what's actually there? Why does it look like there's this structure there with columns and a base, massive structure off the coast there, totally abnormal, and then they go and just cover it up? What's going on there? So let's take a listen to a little bit of some of these clips here, because Tim gets in this video into talking about some of this stuff about there being massive things, sightings. He's talked to high-ranking people and how there's this connection to the deep water areas of our oceans. And also keep in mind here that this is a government official, a congressman. They've completely admitted now at this point, multiple of them in congressional hearings and congressmen themselves, that these things, there's something real. There's a phenomenon, it's taking place, and it's something that we can't explain. It's not our technology. Interesting times.
Thank you, Congressman, for doing this. I never talk about UFOs.
Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Never talk about UFOs. We don't do shows on UFOs, UAPs, whatever they're calling them, these mysterious lights, these objects, because I know for a dead certain fact that there is an ongoing 70-year ongoing disinformation campaign by the U.S. government to sow confusion. Some people participating in that effort, I don't think they know they're participating in the effort, but they are nevertheless selling lies in an effort to get people off the trail of what this really is. There is something
Interesting that Tucker would say that. Sad to say, I'm not going to go deeply into this because I'll be probably making a video on it soon. But actually, Tucker is not the person, not the man that we all thought he was. He has been caught lying recently, multiple times, changing his stance from what he was saying on the Fox News network to when he gets his own network here. Now he just completely changes his stance. And people say, well, he was on a major news network. He had to say that. So you're telling me he can be bought and paid for? You're telling me that he's part of the mainstream media where he'll just say whatever he's told to if the right price is given to him? That's not someone I want to listen to. And then most shockingly of them all, Tucker recently said on his show twice on 2 different occasions that Sharia law doesn't sound like such a bad idea. Is Sharia law really that bad? It sounds kind of good to me. We all have a government that follows God. What is he talking about? Sharia law? I mean, we all know what it is. We can see what Iran, Afghanistan, all these nations look like. Women have no rights, literally have no rights. Like 2/3 of a man. They need the testimony of 3 men to stand up. And it goes on and on and on. And I'll get into that. But it's just interesting to hear Tucker say that type of thing when actually he is very easily bought and paid for too. When one of his main donors that helped him start the Tucker Carlson network is from Qatar. And so that just so happens to be why Tucker is taking the stance that he is on everything these days, including saying Sharia law isn't that big of a deal. Very strange times we're living in. So here we get now into a little bit more of the actual claims that Tim was saying of these entities, these technologies that exist, what exactly they are. Let's take a listen.
What the hell are these things? That's like an even deeper concern.
Yeah.
The money's fake. We just make it.
Yeah, we just print it.
Yeah.
But we've had, what are they? We've had sworn testimony where they'll tell you, they'll say, yeah, I've seen beings. There's a movie coming out.
Hold on. And the testimony says this is sworn testimony.
Sworn testimony. They're beings and there's saucers or some craft or something. But there's a movie coming out pretty soon, if it's ever allowed to come out. I was in it a little bit. And you have former members of the CIA. You have others that positively say they were there. And they identified these things. They diagnosed them and they saw them. They saw the craft. And there's enough people out there saying it, but they're just so suppressed. And the media moves on so fast on something. And I've been on so many of these interviews, and they're playing the theme from some crazy TV show or something before I come on, and they're just making a joke out of it. And I get it. People want to laugh about it.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I get the fact.
Seems like an absolutely,
they just want to humiliate me. And
it's a deadly serious topic, objectively speaking. And
it's a national defense issue, it's everything. It's everything. I mean,
well, and it's even bigger than that, because what we're seeing, we're seeing the congressional hearings. We're seeing congressmen like Tim come out and say, there's something here. There's craft. There's technology that we don't know. There's beings. They're encountering beings. What are these beings? Well, when you know that the Bible is true because you've witnessed it in your life and you've made Jesus your Lord and he shows you all the time that he's real and working in your life, then you start to see that the world and the environment around us, the universe, everything is way more supernatural and spiritual than many people would want to believe. A few of the Bible verses that kind of show where we are with this issue, how to view this issue, where it'll be with the alien deception coming upon the earth that we're seeing now right before our eyes. Ephesians 6:11, put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. What's it say earlier in Ephesians? That there's spiritual wickedness in the heavenly places. Actually, it's the next verse. Spiritual wickedness in the heavenly places, principalities and powers, these things in the heavenly realms, in the skies above. Ephesians 2:2, Satan's the prince of the power of the air. What else do we see here? We see that Satan, he prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. He also comes as an angel of light to deceive people, and so do his ministers. Interesting, right? That so many people have said they've had angel encounters, or they say they're astral projecting. They're encountering angels. They're channeling angels. And then first, way before these people were having these experiences, and at this time now, what does the Bible tell us first? That Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So don't be caught off guard. It even tells us in 1 John 4:1, test the spirits, whether they're from God, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. And there's going to be false deceivers out there trying to spread this thing as if it's good and if it's real, and we should follow the aliens that come down from space. We should listen to what they say. No, we absolutely should not. We absolutely should not. Again, Satan prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. And 2 Corinthians 10:4, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but divine in power to pull down strongholds, showing that there's just a spiritual battle. There's a spiritual battle going on higher than what we can even see. And it breaks into the physical realm, and it is more and more. And just read the book of Revelation to know that there's going to be spiritual manifestations on God's side and on Satan's side, revealing themselves in the physical realm, physical revelations and manifestations of these spiritual powers, of God's powers and the wrath and the judgments, and even more powers from like the 144,000, from the two witnesses, these manifestations. And then there's also Satan, the Antichrist, the beasts, and all these things associated with them, the three spirits that go out to gather the kings of the earth to battle against God Almighty. There's a lot of spiritual things manifesting in the physical reality that the book of Revelation tells us about. What's a coincidence? Is it a coincidence, right? That at the same time that we're seeing the world move in the direction and the prophecies, the foreshadowings of the prophecies and everything that we're seeing at the same exact time that we're seeing now this UFO phenomenon, and then even our own governments around the world and congressmen, people who work for them, coming out and saying that this is a real phenomenon? This is no coincidence. This will play into the end times deception, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Here's a little bit more about what Tim has to say.
And I've had military personnel call me and tell me they've chased these things. They've been in the water. I had one guy tell me a story. He was an officer, and he was in the water fishing off. I think it was on the East Coast, and this huge craft flew over them, and then these several jets were flying, trying to keep up with it. And he identified the jets because he was obviously an Air Force officer, and he said, "Look, I just want you to continue on this thing. You're not." A lot of people have seen stuff, and he said, "I have," and and I mean, he had a distinguished career, but it just continues on and on and on, and it gets, we get patted on the head and say, "Okay, you can have another hearing," and then we do it, but until somebody in the White House says disclose, or somebody walks out of one of these labs with something and is and shows it and puts it on YouTube before he's allowed to come, I think that's the only way we're going to get to the bottom of it, because it will never. It's so deep. The layers of the onion is so deep, you just keep peeling it off, and it's just a different person, a different story. You go over here, and the naivety of Congress. You have members telling me, "Well, let's go over here and we'll get a tour of where you think these things are." I was like, "Dude, once we announce that, the U-Haul vans are already been there and gone. It's not that way. It's not going to work that way. We're Congress."
And that's the truth. That really is the truth. That's how it would be. Even though this is happening in Congress and all that, and then people are coming out and saying things that they normally wouldn't say, especially as it's happened more and more with the testimonies, and some people who say they're whistleblowers, but they're really not. But yeah, nonetheless, we're hearing more information on this subject from these people. But there's a deeper state involved. I mean, it's seriously, it is like the X-Files show where you have the real, the people at the base level trying to do this, but then you have the deeper state, the deep state involved, and they would never let it get to the point. If somebody thought they knew where there was a warehouse full of these things and they went there to look, the second they got there, it's completely empty. That's how this thing works, just like he says. And that's the state of it. And yes, we've had disclosure. They admit it, that there's non-human entities, non-human crafts, whether that's even the right words that they're using for it or not. We're at least hearing now that this is what's happening and this is real. But And I don't even think it even falls into that category. We'll see what it really is when it's revealed. But again, the whole world will not fully believe, and not everybody's going to get on board. Even though we all now have heard there's something there that we don't know what it is, they won't fully believe until, like he mentioned, someone walks out with something, puts up a video proven to not be AI. They go live and they show a facility with these crafts or with beings or something like this. That's the only way that people will finally say, everybody undeniably, that this thing exists, even though they practically already have. Now, let's listen to what Tim has to say about some of the things surrounding the oceans, because it is interesting, and that's kind of how he, came into the public eye on the subject recently, like we saw, talking about that there's like 5 or 6 massive alien bases. He says they could have even been here before. We don't even know. They could maybe not even be from somewhere else. They could just be from here. And there's a lot of videos of orbs and these different things flying over the oceans. There is a connection to water here, that's for sure.
So in the course of your probing into this, no one's ever taken you aside and said, hey, Bruchett, back off a little bit. This is our stuff. We don't want to disclose it.
Pretty close to that. Pretty close to that.
But you don't believe it. You don't think this is our technology.
No, I do not. There's no way. It is our no way it's our technology. There's, I've talked to too many pilots. Why would we risk our best? I mean, I've talked to the best pilots in the world that are ours. Some of them, not all of them, and that have told me. I mean, one guy, I remember I was at Capitol Hill Club. It was just an unusual encounter. A guy spoke to a group and he followed me out and said, Tim, or Congressman or whatever, he said that thing was 14 feet. He went like this from my canopy. And I thought to myself, why didn't he say 15? Why didn't he say 20? But he said 14. And then he said this thing, it wasn't ours. He said, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't ours. And that's all he said. And I had a very high-ranking member of the Navy describe some underwater experiences they'd had with something that was doing 200 miles. And the best thing we got is probably 40. It
was doing 200 miles an hour underwater.
Underwater, big as a football field. And that's no fish.
So, right, there you have it. What do you take from all that? Well, what we have is that disclosure is here. They've admitted these things are real. They admitted that's what's happening, that there's something happening, at least that we do not know what it is. We can't explain it. It's not ours, pretty much, is the way to go about it. But the scary part here is that everybody's going to start thinking that they're from another planet and they're from extraterrestrials from another planet. And that's not the case either. It's falling into the deceptions of what the Bible says is happening in the end times, these manifestations, these things are, there's no way. If you believe and you know the truth, and the truth is that God created the earth and he created humans, he would not create these violent, more powerful entities from other planets who are going to come here and destroy us. It just makes zero sense that God would create that and at least not even mention it to us, or the fact that he would just create them and they're more powerful and they're out there with intelligence. Do they have souls? I know Jesus only died once for all sins, for all mankind. So what about these? What are these? It just gets way too complex. It does not fit the biblical creation story. And so what is it? Well, the Bible gives us plenty of verses that allude to spiritual battles going on in the heavenly realms. Why in the heavenly realms? Why are there these powers in the skies? Why is Satan the prince of the power of the air? And that's where we're seeing these things. And then you read Revelation and you hear the spiritual manifestations and the supernatural things that are taking place in the end times, and knowing that spiritual manifestations of good and evil can manifest themselves in the physical realm, and we'll be seeing it more and more. So that's exactly what I think this is. And the testimonies of Jesus stopping alien abductions and UFO encounters just goes to prove that it's a spiritual manifestation that is manifesting itself more and more on the earth. That's what I believe. That's what I've experienced. And so that's where I'll stand. And I hope and pray that you'll ask the Lord to give you the truth. And no matter what, if you believe Jesus is Lord and follow him, he will lead you in all truth. And he has the power over all of these authorities by the cross and what he did there, defeating death, defeating sin, rising from the grave 3 days later. He has defeated all that. He is victorious over all spiritual powers and principalities. His name alone drives demons away. And just even like his disciples said in the Gospels, Lord, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. Jesus has all the power.